put a nail just to hold it in place, and then put the top one, and if all looks good, then I'll add more nails. So day 11, we're gonna finish the window, which we started in day 10. First things first, we get the measurements to know exactly where the hole is gonna be. At least my guy's doing that. Right here, he had to cut another shim just to make sure that the framing is straight. This is where the hole is gonna be for the window. Just making sure the measurement is straight before using the circular saw. So one more time, this is where the window is going to be situated. Once he cut the hole, all he has to do is pop it out, and there it is. That's where the window is going to be located. So right here, just making sure that it fits. So my guy had to do this a couple of times. I didn't really show it, but see how he's using the circular saw once more, just to make sure that the hole fits flush for the window. And like I said, this had to be done a few times. The caulking adhesive that we're using is this one called Stretch. Put it all around here so that once the window is placed, it's gonna stay in place, right? And he's just using that extra caulking right there to put around the plywood, because as I keep mentioning, right, the paint is got cracks in it, and so just using that extra caulking in between so that when I repaint, then it's the cracks are going to be covered. While my guy was working on the shed, I had to go back to Home Depot and get a few more things right here. Some caulking, liquid nails, and shingles. So right here, my guy is getting the staple gun ready for the roof. And this is the type of staple that he uses. This is kind of like a hammer staple because you kind of hammer it, right? So he's gonna use that to staple the sheeting, the roof sheeting. And right there you see the staples. He's inserting it inside the staple gun or hammer. Right there he started cutting the aluminum, which is going to be on the edges of the roof. Right there you see him trying to put it in place on top. So right there you see him cutting the excess edge off. Now I have to hand him the sheeting for the roof right here, the roll. I try to hand it over. I hand it over to him, and he just starts putting the sheeting right there. He starts using that hammer staple that he was loading earlier. He ran out of staples, so I gave him some more. Just threw it at him, and he just kept on stapling the sheeting, the roof sheeting on top. Right there, he's just cutting the excess sheeting. And then now he's looking at the shingle as it's going to be placed on top of the roof. He's already up on the roof and he's cutting the excess shingle from right here, from the edges. Once he puts the shingles in place, then he's going to start hammering right here. Starts hammering the shingles. And this is a little bit painstaking. It takes time. You see him hammering away. He has to make sure the shingles are in place, and then he just keeps on doing that. So he took a break from working on the shingles to finish the double doors. Right here you see one of the double doors up. As he tries to make it fit, he is putting the latches right there. I think he's going to put 3 on each side. As I mentioned on the previous episode, we ended up using the gate frames because it's just easier. So once we were done with the first door, we started working on the second door, making sure that it fits. And again, start putting the latches three on each side. Right here, I'm just making sure that it opens and closes properly. So you got the locks on the top and the bottom of the door, and then you got the latches in the middle, two of them to close. So that's what it looks like. Once the door is set, my guy started cutting the plywood that's going to close off this hole because we no longer have to go through this hole right here, right? Because now we have a door. So nighttime, we started working on the shingles again because it was a little hot earlier, and now we have to just finish off the rest of the work. The middle part, I had to cut off little shingles to give to my guy because we ran out of those pre-made shingles that you put in the middle. So here is where my guy is putting the little shingles that I cut because we ran out of those pre-made shingles. And so we just had to just cut them. Right here, he puts the adhesive, and then he starts hammering. Once the shingles were done, we pretty much finished off for the night because it was pretty late. Just checking one more time before we close up. And that's pretty much it. Day 11, working on the shed build. And as you can see, we finally got the doors done right there with all the hinges and the lock. Also, the roof has finally been installed, and some of the panel on the side as well. Here is the door. And so you got the hinges installed right here. So that's a good feature to have, right? In case you want to store, or if I want to store like a ATV or something bigger, then I won't have any issues because I have the double doors right there. And then another one is the windows was also installed, as you can see right here. It's not done yet because there's still framing that's going to go around the windows. So that finally got installed, and then of course the roofing was done right there. The roofing with the shed, you know, it's been way overdue. I thought it was going to take 3 days, and it took, well, now close to at least half a month. I'm supposed to get this house done, and the improvements and the add-ons, just like the shed and everything else that I have to do. I still have to do windows and get the bathroom done and all that. So there's a lot more remodeling that I have to do. So time is money too. So anyway, that's just a recap of day 11. Being able to put the windows, the doors finally up, the roof, which took most of the day. I had to make another trip over at Home Depot to buy some more stuff. I could almost see the finish line, so I'm almost done. Day 12, doing the shed build, and it's just me doing some touch-up paint all around the shed, just the exposed wood that didn't have any paint protection. I just repainted all that, like on top of the doors that was cut and didn't have any paint, so I painted all that stuff right here. The frames, see the gray area, boom, all that. So I just repainted all this right here because it was exposed wood, and I just want everything to be protected with paint so they will last longer. So that's what I did. I touched up the rest of the walls, and as I mentioned, there were some cracks because the paint didn't cure soon enough. And so the trick was to put some caulking and spread it around the walls, right? And then when it dried up, I had to repaint again the cracks, but there were still a few cracks left, so I had to still touch those up. So that's what I've been doing. It's kind of like painstaking having to redo. I probably had to repaint this 3-4 times already, but that's what happens when you paint over paint and it's not cured. This is what it looked like after day 12. Finishing up the paint and the double doors right here, as you can see, with the gate frames, and then these little corners were also painted just to add more protection for the wood so that there's no exposed wood. And again, just checking the texture on the plywood after I added the caulking to cover up the cracks and then repainting. As you can see, I still need to put trimming around the window, but here just checking on the cracks, making sure there's no more cracks on the paint, and just painting little parts here and there. So the shed is pretty much done at this point. All I have to do are the little things. First, you start off cutting it, measuring, make sure you cut the right size. Then you paint the tips, make sure it's all white. So when you cut the trims, you want to paint the edges, just make sure it's fully protected. Here are the trims that I'm going to install, the corners. And I've already installed these right here, but I'm going to do the corners, as you can see. So these are the trims that I have left. First things first, I used liquid nails to make sure that the trim will stick. Because I don't have the staple gun, I'm just going to make use of these finished nails after I put up the frames with the liquid nails. Like I said, I didn't have the staple gun with me, so I had to resort to using nails instead of staples. So right here on the corners, you can see two trims next to each other on both sides. I just lined them up. So that's for both the left and the right side. I also had to put trim in the middle, right here where I'm putting the liquid nails, because there's like a break in between both plywood. I try not to overdo it with the liquid nails, but sometimes I end up putting more than I should, so it kind of overlaps. But if you check out this side right here, see how there's more, because there was a gap here, so I intentionally put more liquid nail so that way I could kind of caulk it more and cover up the gaps right there on the corner. So more gaps, you can put more liquid nails and to cover up the gaps. That's why I put a little gap right here, so that this will fit sort of flush when you're doing the corners. My handyman did and installed the wrong way. It's not flush. The back you can still see gaps, so I have to remove it and then reinstall it again. And then this one is supposed to be on this side so that the gap will be covered right here. So aside from taking out the nails, you have to sort of get rid of the liquid nails, which is the glue. So I have to kind of pry that open. So I just have to kind of keep doing that and try to shimmy my way and break the glue. So like I just said, my guy did the trimming wrong here because he kind of left a big gap. I had to remove the trims again and add more liquid nails, as you can see right here. Just trying to see if I can make it look as flush as possible. There's still going to be a gap, but I'm doing my best. So because there's a big gap, as you can see right here, I just decided to put liquid nails, because I can't really use regular nail because it won't stick to the wood. So that's just what I'm doing right now. I'm just putting liquid nails all the way. So when I install this, hopefully it will at least cover a partial gap here. And because of the big gap right here, I had to add more liquid nails. As you can see, I just have to emphasize that I'm adding a lot more liquid nails here because I had to cover up this gap prior to adding the trim, just to make it look as flush as possible. Notice how there's still a gap, so I'm just gonna have to like caulk this here, and then I'm just gonna nail it to the other side and caulk this here to cover up the gaps. Once the trim is in place, I needed to add some more liquid nails just to seal everything tight right here using my fingers. And as you can see, here's kind of like a close-up view of what it looks like. I just have to wait till it dries up, then I can repaint the trim and also the plywood. After redoing the front trims and fixing the gap, now it's time to work on the window trims right here. Just doing my measurements for the bottom part. And I'm also going to do the same measurements for the top because the top and the bottom will be the same length. After that, I also start measuring the sides. Same thing. So the bottom will have a little bit more in terms of length compared to the sides. For the left and right side, you measure from in here rather than the tip of the frame. You measure it from inside. So once I got the measurements, I cut the pieces and then start painting the tips, making sure that everything is white. As you can see right here, that's the same procedure I did with the other trims. I just applied the same thing here. Because it was a hot day, I had to take a pool break real quick just to cool things down. Make sure that I'm ready to go for the second half of the day doing the trims. So let's get to it. So I gave these frames a day to dry up for the paint, and now I'm gonna go ahead and get them installed on the windows. See how that goes. So again, just making sure that the pieces I cut are the appropriate length, because once I install them, it's gonna be tricky to take them back out. So I got the liquid nails on the windows. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in and then start hammering. So on the sides is the same thing. As you can see, I've already put the liquid nails there, and I measured where I'm gonna put the nails. I'm just gonna put one nail just to kind of see how it fits, and then I'll put the left side, and then finally I'll do the top side. So for the right side, I already have liquid nails, so now I'm just gonna install the trim. Same thing with the left side, making sure it fits first, and then I put the liquid nails. Once I put the liquid nails on there, then I can install the trim and then put a nail to keep it in place. Now once I do that, I do the same process with the top. Put the liquid nails, install the trim. Now I'm just gonna start putting all the other nails all around. Like I just said, once the trims are in place, now I could add more nails to make sure I secure each one. And then I'm gonna add some more of the liquid nails on the edges just to make sure that the trims are sealed. I put the nails in place. What I need to do now is put caulking all the way around. Right here, you see these gaps? I'm gonna put more caulking here, inside, underneath. So pretty much all the way around, even on top, and just caulk the whole window, and that should do the trick. After it dries up, then I could just repaint the trim and should be good to go. Caulk corners right here. Hard to do this with one hand, but you get the idea, right? I mean, you don't even have to use liquid nails. You could use just regular caulking or whatever you prefer, but I'm just using liquid nails because that's what I have. Use your finger to spread the caulking, like so. I think the hardest part was doing the top because gravity, the caulking just goes down faster, so I had to put a little bit more. I know it looks messy right now because there's like caulking all over the place, but once it dries up, then I'm gonna repaint it or paint the trims, and it should be good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna just start painting right here. So this is really the final step, just repainting the trim because of the excess liquid nails that has dried up. I just want to make sure that that's all white. Some of it is overlapping outside. Doesn't matter because I'm going to repaint the wall gray anyways. I just wanted to paint the trim white to kind of finish things off. And so that's pretty much going to do it for the window trim. Making it, cutting it, installing it, and painting it. And I know I spent a couple days just working on right here the front trims, the window trims, the back trims, pretty much all the trims, right? Just to try to make it look nicer because as I mentioned in the past, I don't have any sidings. So I try to make it look as decent as possible on a budget. So this is kind of what it looks like. On the window, you can see the trims that I installed on the side, the corners, the back. That's what it looks like right now. And I think it looks all right considering there's no siding, right? I just repainted, making sure that there's no cracks. It's not fancy or anything like that, but it's gonna do the job considering this is just gonna be a storage for me. The only thing I wish I had time to do was adding more trims on the doors. But I think even like this, it looks okay. It's not the greatest, obviously. Some people will say, oh, you should add some trim on the door so it looks really nice and it'll maybe cover up more of those imperfections. But like I said, I just had to make it look as decent as possible with the budget that I had. So I hope you guys enjoyed this shed build. On the next episode, I'll be talking about my overall thoughts with building a shed from scratch, with and without my guy, and just how I feel overall about the process and the finished product and all the other stuff in between.